Good morning. Welcome to Central Unitarian. It's absolutely wonderful to see so many smiling faces on this cold January morning. My name is Susan Usatine, and I am happy to serve as the worship associate this winter morning. CUC is an inclusive community of all ages which embraces diversity in identity, expression, and spiritual belief. We gather here each Sunday in worship to find inspiration, hope, and renewal among this community of like-hearted individuals. If you are visiting us in person, please be sure to say hello to one of our welcome hosts. Conrad, Oliver, and Denise were welcoming everyone this morning. If you would, raise your hand. There they are. And if you're visiting with us online, please be sure to click the link provided in the chat and sign our guest book by providing us with your name and contact information. We are so very pleased to welcome Reverend Mark Cutolo to CUC this morning. Reverend Mark is CUC's sabbatical minister who will cover a portion of Reverend Andrée's duties while Reverend Andrée is on sabbatical. Reverend Mark serves as faith consulting minister at Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Rockland in Pomona, New York. He is a born and raised resident of the state of New York and a millennial. And he has both a Master of Divinity and Master of Social Work. Besides serving his congregation, he also works part-time as a psychotherapist at the Counseling and Wellness Center at Marymount Manhattan College, where he helps students achieve improved mental well-being. Mark also maintains a private teletherapy practice. He is passionate about liberal religion and appreciates how Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition where we support one another in our search for truth and meaning. Reverend Mark will split his time between the two congregations and his therapy practices. He will lead 2 services per month at CUC, 3 in March, where there are 5 Sundays, with a few additional hours each month dedicated to our staff, pastoral care, and other duties that arise. We invite you to stay after service for coffee, conversation, and connection in this space, and to give Reverend Mark a warm welcome. As we prepare to begin our service this morning, we ask all of you here in person to please silence your electronic devices. Few announcements this morning. This month only, the soup lunch is next Wednesday, January 8th, here at the Women's Club. Also, the Women's Alliance Annual Wellness Program is next Saturday, January 11th, from 9 a.m. to noon here at the Women's Club. For questions, please see Evelyn Stockvis. Evelyn, I saw you. There she is. And please, 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 the beautiful poinsettias here at the front of the stage, please take a poinsettia or two home with you today. They are extremely resilient. They require very little care, so take them home with you and enjoy them. And now let us more formally begin our gathering. Please turn to a person near you and offer them a warm welcome.
You just started?
Good morning, everybody. It's so good to be with you today. Our opening words are in honor of the new year and are from the United Nations Environmental Sabbath Program. We join with the earth and with each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air. We join with the earth and with each other to renew the forests, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures. We join with the earth and with each other. To celebrate the seas, to rejoice in the sunlight, to sing the song of the stars. We join with the earth and with each other. To recreate the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember the children. We join with the earth and with each other. We join together as many and diverse expressions of one loving mystery for the healing of the earth and the renewal of all life. And now I invite everyone gathered here to stand in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, which is number 350, The Ceaseless Flow of Endless Time, number 350.
I invite you to join me in saying our chalice lighting words while Reverend Mark lights our chalice. Our words are based on the CUC vision statement. We light this chalice to remind us of our dreams, to nourish our heart, mind, and spirit, to work towards a better world for all, to embrace the whole of our human experience, to honor our past and our gifts of the present, to create a community where each of us may find healing, transformation, and hope. We are not alone. Our lives are built on shared commitments, giving and receiving together. Our congregation serves as a place where we intentionally practice this shared living, interdependence in a culture that overemphasizes independence. One of the ways we practice our interdependence is through our congregation's finances, which depend on the generous contributions of our members and friends. We pause each week to recognize this particular form of sharing, each of us giving what we can to support the mission and vision of Central Unitarian Church. Your financial contribution helps each and every one of us to grow, to serve, and most importantly, to live lives centered on love. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Now let us join our voices in unison as we speak the dedication words based on CUC's mission statement. We dedicate these gifts in service of our mission to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to become our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community.
We now pause to take a moment to share our joys and sorrows. We do this each week as a way of caring for one another. We invite you to share the joys and sorrows you hold in your heart today. If you're online, you may do so by entering that information in the chat box. And for those who are here in person, you may have already lit a candle and submitted a joy or sorrow, which I'll read shortly. We'll also offer a moment for those here to share out loud the names of those whom you are holding in your heart today. So now let us quiet ourselves in order to enter that holy space of listening and of breathing in a breath of life and breathing out a breath of peace. And now for those who are gathered here, I invite you to share out loud the names of anyone else that you are holding in your heart today. We hold these cares, joys, and concerns in our hearts, as well as the ones which remain unspoken. And now, would you please join me in a moment of meditation? While sitting down where you are, be aware of your feet grounded on the floor. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, scanning your entire body up and down, from your toes to the top of your head, then back down again while breathing out. As you inhale and exhale, breathe deep into your chest so your belly fills with the air. When exhaling, control the air as it leaves your lungs. At this time, make breathing in and out your only responsibility. Listen to your breath as it goes in and out of your nose. Feel it as it fills your lungs. Control it as your lungs empty. Do this for 1 minute. At the end of that portion of the meditation, I will continue with the text of today's spoken meditation, after which we will continue with another moment of silent meditation. Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, after learning my flight had been delayed 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman, in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing. "Help," said the flight agent. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this." I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly. "Shu dawa, shu bidak habibti. Stani shwai min fadlik, shubit sewi." The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, "No, we're fine. You'll get there, just later. Who is picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son. I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane and ride next to her. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling of her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, from her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar. And smiling, there is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones, and I thought, this is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. And that concludes this moment for meditation. I now invite those gathered here in person to rise in body or in spirit so we can sing hymn number 180, hymn number 180, Alhamdulillah.
We're going to just sing it twice in unison.
A reading by the 20th century American theologian, Christian mystic, and civil rights leader Howard Thurman, titled The Work of Christmas. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the brothers, to make music in the heart. Here ends the reading.
This morning, we find ourselves at the end of the holiday season, with today being the 12th day of Christmas, and tomorrow the Feast of the Epiphany. Today is also the first Sunday of a new year, and as usual, we hope that this year might bring more peace in our world, that peace may prevail. I was happy to note a message dedicated to peace, which was delivered by Pope Francis in Rome on Christmas Day, when he told the audience gathered at the Vatican that, quote, "Divine mercy dispels hatred and the spirit of revenge," end quote. And he made note of the various health crises, civil crises, political crises, and armed conflicts in places as diverse as Burkina Faso, Colombia, Cyprus, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Haiti, Lebanon, Libya, Mali, Mozambique, Myanmar, Nicaragua, Niger, Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, and Venezuela. He also mentioned the armed conflict in the Holy Land, saying, quote, "May the sound of arms be silenced in the Middle East. In contemplating the crib of Bethlehem, I think of the Christian communities in Palestine and in Israel, particularly the dear community in Gaza, where the humanitarian situation is extremely grave. May there be a ceasefire. May the hostages be released, and aid be given to the people worn out by hunger and by war. May the doors of dialogue and peace be flung open throughout the region devastated by conflict," end quote. We know from reports that the war in the Gaza Strip hasn't just affected that area of the Holy Land, but has also affected the occupied West Bank, where Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus of Nazareth, is located. For the second year in a row, Christmas celebrations were quite muted, even as hopes for an as-yet unrealized ceasefire persist. The town of Bethlehem hadn't put up a Christmas tree in the town square, nor was there a Christmas market, nor any Christmas caroling. Many Arab residents of the West Bank know or are related to people in the Gaza Strip and are aware of the suffering there. In addition, the economic toll of the conflict has been acutely felt by the local residents of the West Bank, and as a local tour guide in Bethlehem explained to a reporter while idly feeding the pigeons, quote, "If there are tourists, all the people will work. Hotels, transportation, accommodation, all of them. But if there are no tourists, there is no life in Bethlehem City," end quote. In the midst of the ongoing suffering throughout the Holy Land, with Israeli hostages still captive in underground tunnels, and with both Israelis and Palestinians still displaced from their homes, one wonders whether there is any possibility for lasting peace and justice in this small strip of land that engenders both so much meaning and so much intractable conflict. Sometimes, people will wonder, understandably, why there haven't emerged any well-known or captivating figures for peace in the Holy Land, someone like Martin Luther King Jr. or Mahatma Gandhi, someone with a clear moral vision for peace based on an ethic of nonviolence. In a land where a holy man like Jesus of Nazareth taught his followers, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Why hasn't that message of peace resonated with enough people to create the conditions for peace? I admit I've wondered that a lot. The reality is, though, that if you know where to look, you will find local groups and people like that who are actively working towards creating peace in the Holy Land. It's just that those people tend not to be politicians, nor do they have a high profile, but they are there and they do exist. Last summer, I read with interest about a village in the West Bank whose name is Tent of Nations. I learned about Tent of Nations from a piece by the American journalist Nicholas Kristof, who wrote, quote, In a region that seems so bleak, so caught up in cycles of escalating conflict where extremists on one side empower extremists on the other, I think of the peacemakers as voices of our better angels. I write about them in hopes that we can collectively amplify their voices, end quote. And I hope that this sermon further amplifies that message. The Tent of Nations is located just 8 miles or so from the little town of Bethlehem in the West Bank. The Tent of Nations is actually a farm which is located on top of a hill where the Nasser family has lived for countless generations. In 1916, in the waning days of the Ottoman Empire, and as local Christians were slowly starting to be tempted to move abroad to pursue freedom and prosperity elsewhere, the Nasser family formally purchased the land. The Nasser family are Arab Christians, specifically Lutheran. And in case you're wondering, Lutheranism came to the Holy Land in the 19th century, when Protestants from what was then known as Prussia came to the Holy Land where they established schools, hospitals, orphanages, and churches. In 1898, Kaiser Wilhelm II visited the Holy Land himself to promote German interest in the region, to pledge support for local Christian communities there, and to inaugurate the opening of the Lutheran Church of the Redeemer in Jerusalem, built on land he had bought and donated. That church, as well as the Augusta Victoria Hospital, which his wife, the Empress, had founded, and many of the schools and congregations which were founded in that era, are still operating and are now run by local Palestinian Christians with support from those abroad. It's from that context that the Nasser family came to be Lutherans in the Holy Land. If you yourself were to visit the Tent of Nations, you would be greeted by a sign painted on a rock at the entrance to the farm, which says in Arabic, English, and German, "We refuse to be enemies." That simple rock serves as a monument to the idea that Arabs and Jews can actually live together in harmony. After the 1948 Palestine War, when 750,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes, the mission of the Tent of Nations farm started to find its beginning. Bishara Nasser, whose father had purchased the land, felt a higher calling and began a ministry in the Bethlehem area among the local Christian refugees by offering Bible study and prayer sessions in order to empower them and to encourage them to stay and not to emigrate. Later, the West Bank became occupied by Israel following the Six-Day War of 1967, and then starting in the 1970s, Israelis started building illegal settlements in the area. In 1991, the Israeli authorities declared that the Nasser family farm was Israeli state land, despite the family's proof of ownership. In 2001, the family decided to formally dedicate their farm under the name Tent of Nations to make it an intentional meeting place that welcomes peacemakers from abroad to their farm. In 2007, the Israeli Supreme Court voted to allow the Nasser family to begin the process of re-registering their land. However, the state bureaucracy has delayed that process year after year until this day. Perhaps as a consequence of the ongoing legal ambiguity, in 2021, anonymous arsonists set the farm on fire, destroying 1,000 fruit trees. Later that same year, Israeli bulldozers entered the property and removed several dozen olive trees. In 2022, several dozen more olive trees were uprooted by vandals, and later that year, 2 of the Nasser brothers were physically assaulted and injured on their land by masked men. Despite the decades of struggle, the Nasser family continues to act with hope. They host children's camps and other programs on the farm to promote understanding and nonviolence, even as they struggle to save their land from confiscation by the residents of the 5 illegal settlements which surround their farm. They frequently quote Martin Luther King Jr. and provide a model of peacefulness for their neighbors of all ethnicities. The Nasser family emphasizes that while militants and fanatics often dominate the news headlines, countless individuals on both sides of the conflict are working toward peace and understanding in a region which is desperately lacking both. Dawood, who is one of the 3 Nasser siblings who runs the farm, said, quote, "It's very important for us to show that nonviolent resistance is the key to change. With violence, people will achieve more violence, will achieve more hatred, will achieve more bitterness, and more enemies," end quote. His sister, Amal, described a recent incident when she tried to harvest olives from the trees. Settlers had been trying to illegally seize part of the land, and one day when she was in the field, some people had approached her, armed with guns, and said, "You're not allowed to work here." She asked them, "How is this your land?" And a settler told her, "But God gave it to us." And it's not just encroachments on her family's farm that cause stress. The main access road that connects the farm with other towns is only allowed to be used by cars with Israeli license plates. The farm also is not connected to the same electricity grid as the settlements are, so the family has set up their own solar panels. The farm also is not connected to the same water lines as the settlements, so the family collects fresh water in cisterns when it rains. In spite of it all, while these conditions would make many people lose their faith, Amal Nasser shared that she remains undeterred because of her strong religious faith and her belief in divine justice. She said, quote, "We want to make this a place of dialogue. And if they come to uproot 1 olive tree, I want to plant 10. We choose to build a healthier generation, learning to accept one another, to deal with each other as human beings. We want children to grow up without hatred," end quote. Noting the challenges faced by the residents of the region, Nicholas Kristof finished his report by writing, quote, "It's true that Israel's current leadership is extremist, that Hamas is a misogynistic terrorist organization, and that the Palestinian Authority is corrupt, autocratic, and ineffective. So can these heroic efforts, like Tent of Nations, which are beneath the leadership tier by Palestinians and Israelis alike, accomplish anything? The task feels Sisyphean, and the great need is not just for empathy and dialogue, but also for fundamentally different policies. Yet American and European governments should do everything possible to keep these embers glowing, to support these pioneers for peace in hopes that they can preserve space for dialogue and better policies, as happened in Northern Ireland just a generation ago. If the Nassers lose the Tent of Nations to violent settlers, a beacon of understanding will be extinguished," end quote. It's for these reasons that the work that people like the Nasser family are doing is quite literally what the 20th century Christian mystic and writer Howard Thurman called the work of Christmas. Christmas comes just once a year, but as Thurman wrote, quote, "Once the song of the angels is stilled, the work of Christmas begins, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the brothers," end quote. If the nativity of Jesus in Bethlehem and his message means anything to us these days, Jesus of Nazareth's mission wasn't to make sure that American retailers could make healthy end-of-year sales or to give us all a day off from work, however wonderful and nice that is, but rather to be a light for the nations, to bring peace in a very disturbed world. As Unitarian Universalists, we share that vision, and it's why as UUs we value pluralism, and why we embrace our differences and our commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. No one can say when peace will come to the Middle East, but as the poet from our meditation wrote, "This common understanding can happen anywhere. Not everything is lost. This is the world that I want to live in.
Let us join together as we say our chalice extinguishing words based on CUC's covenant. We extinguish this chalice flame, but not our promise to each other, to act with grace, to hold each other in love, to serve this community in our world. This promise of the heart serves as a reminder of how we live together. May it bring joy to our collective lives. If you would rise in body or spirit and let us sing together hymn number 161, Peace, the Perfect World.
Before I share with you our closing words, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. Obviously, people have choices about how to spend their weekend or how to spend their Sunday morning, so I want to thank you all for choosing to be here at CUC this morning. And of course, I want to thank all of the leaders who helped to make this service possible, those who are helping with coffee hour, with music, worship associates, technology, greeters, everyone. Thank you so much for all that you do. And now I share with, yes, applause. And now I share with you a benediction by the writer Helen Weaver. O our Mother the Earth, blessed is your name. Blessed are your fields and forests, your rocks and mountains, your grasses and trees and flowers, and every green and glowing thing. Blessed are your streams and lakes and rivers, the oceans where our life began, and all your waters that sustain our bodies and refresh our souls. Blessed is the air we breathe, your atmosphere that surrounds us and binds us to every living thing. Blessed are all the creatures who walk along your surface, or swim in your waters, or fly through your air, for they are all our relatives. Blessed are all people who share this planet, for we are all one family, and the same Spirit moves through us all. Blessed is the sun, our day star, bringer of morning and the heat of summer, giver of light and life. Blessed is the moon, our night lamp, ruler of the tides, protector of all women, and guardian of our dreams. Blessed are the stars and planets, the timekeepers, who fill our nights with beauty and our hearts with awe. O great Spirit, whose voice we hear in the wind and whose face we see in the morning sun, blessed is your name. Help us to remember that you are everywhere and teach us the way of peace. And that concludes our service today.